You really didn't know?
No,
Like, really?
I legitimately had no
I
clue.
seriously was sitting here for a minute thinking, oh, maybe he's saying that for the camera.
No, I am not saying it for the.
Welcome to Critical Café,
Join us as we chat about the latest episode,
the campaign as a whole, and Critical Role in general.
all while we partake in a delicious cup of coffee. So grab yourself a tasty beverage
Settle into your favorite cozy spot.
and get ready for a little geek philosophy. Welcome to Critical Cafe, where we're going to talk about Campaign 3, Blood and Dust? Oof. Lots going
I
on
know.
for
Well-
this episode of their campaign. So let's start off with the campaign in general, since this is our first kind of foray into talking about Critical Role as a couple on camera. So let's kind of talk about, what did you think just even from the start of Campaign 3? We'll kind of do a quick recap of our own thoughts, and then we'll get into this specific episode, but just so everybody knows where we were with the campaign as we watched this.
So, I mean, it's one of those things where I love Critical Role and I love every single person at the table. They all bring their own personalities and their quirks and, you know, the characters that they make. Some of them I love, some of them I don't like, but they're not the people. It's the characters that they make and what they want to invoke and portray, I think. So leading up to this episode, I had kind of been a little lazy with watching, really.
Both of us, really. Yeah, it was kind of like,
Yeah.
you know, we were watching it when we also, you know, we got a kid, we've got life going on. We're what some critters might call old. Just me, at least. I won't speak for you, but like we're older.
Oh yeah, those gray hairs.
Yeah, we're probably older than a lot of the demographic, right? Like, so we're East Coast, so like to watch it live, it's on kind of late for us,
Right.
For me,
Yeah.
especially, I'm falling asleep while you're still watching most of the time if I have.
Yeah,
to keep
and we
it.
can usually, if we're rested, get to the break on opening night.
Yeah.
And then we have to do the last half, you know, either Friday night or Saturday night or over the weekend. But always before the next episode.
And avoid all spoilers, right? Like, because like if you only watch part of it, and then if you're on any social media and you're a member of several groups, right? Like, so
Yes.
yeah, like it pops up in your feed whenever someone has a reaction.
Yeah,
even if it's not like a spoiler, it's just like the reaction itself can be a spoiler. So
yeah, I'm in a ton of different groups, and one of them is a group that specifically states that spoilers will happen. It's in the whole heading and everything, because they really wanted a safe space for people to be able to just discuss it, whether it was what happened the night before or, you know, last campaign. So,
and luckily that's like a closed group where like they know that when they're getting into it. It's not like they're broadcasting this information out for everybody else. They're just kind of talking about it in a safe space where nobody can spoil it for anybody else. But like, if you know that you're joining that group, then you run the potential risk of having some spoilers every once in a while. So
yeah.
And I am with you that like, it's not even just timing, right? Like, I think you said it best when it was like, we love the whole cast. We love all the stuff behind the scenes. We love all the production value. We loved the characters for all the seasons we watched. It was slow going getting into, for me, I'll be honest, it was slow going getting into the overall story arc. I couldn't just find my way in. I loved the characters. I thought the characters were really well done. I loved Travis's switch up of going from Bertrand Bell over to Chetney. I thought that was great, and I thought from a DM's perspective, it was a really good player DM collaboration thing. Like, you know, they talked about it ahead of time and made it happen. So there were some really cool moments, I think, throughout. But yeah, I think we're on the same page as that. Like, we found ourselves watching other things sometimes, and then putting off that episode from time to time.
Kind of speaking to the whole Bertrand Bell thing. I mean, how amazing is it that he probably went to him ahead of time and said, "Hey, guy, Matt, I've got this character that I want you to kill off," you know? And probably not knowing that it would be this big of an impact on the group. really. I don't know if Travis went into thinking that Bertrand would really be the whole naming of the group, and then they're trying to avenge his death, the whole 9 yards. Because they seem to almost not really like Bertrand.
Wait. Bertrand Bell is Bell's Hells. That's where that came
Bell's Hells.
from? Oh my gosh.
The Bells.
Like,
Hells.
How did I not know this?
Yep. That's where they got it.
Oh my gosh. How did I
It's
not
almost
put that
like,
together?
him dying was the biggest thing he ever did the last half of his life.
I had no connection to that, and that really makes me sad that I did not. And it'll be fun. And wow. I let everybody down in the whole fandom. Sorry. Like, it's ridiculous.
It's kind of awesome though.
Anyway, all right. But that tells you, like, that's an indicator of my connection, how connected I was with the story up until.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's right. Cats
Romeo.
happen. So, yeah, they know Romeo by now. But that kind of tells you like just an epiphany right now of like how much I wanted to be connected to the story, but I just wasn't.
Right.
And it's not the fault of anybody that's playing. It's not the fault of Matt as a DM. It's really not. I want to make sure people aren't thinking that I'm downing any of it. I think there are some people that this was their first experience, their first campaign was watching this. Maybe they caught on by watching Legends of Vox Machina, and then they started watching this as campaign 3 was the first one they really started with.
Yeah.
And they love it, and that's awesome. I just couldn't until this episode hit, and it just kind of changed for me. Like, I don't know why. Well, I do know why, but we'll get to that. But it's.
I mean, it lit a fire.
It did. It did. So yeah, that's kind of. Anything else from your perspective about like the Well, let me even say this. We said why we weren't connected, but what are you kind of connecting with in the story?
Prior to the last episode 33, there are certain characters that I absolutely love the character design and how they're played. Laudna is one of my favorites. It might be my actual favorite that Marisha has ever played. And I think it's because her voice a little reminds me of Ava Green a little bit. Is it Ava Green? Eva Green? Eva?
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
A little from Penny Dreadful, that kind of vibe.
Yeah. And then how she goes into explaining how Laudna does things, and then her little pet rat Pate, who, I mean, she's basically an undead with a dead rat. But she's funny. She's able to make it funny, and I think that's great. It's in a comical, like, almost like a, was it The Nightmare Before Christmas, or...
Oh yeah, I can see that. Like,
like Tim Burton-y type way. Yeah.
No, that's really. I think she's probably one. Not that role players should have ratings at all, like as far as better or worse, because it's all different depending on who you are. But I think you'll get what I mean when I say this. I think she's the most underrated role player. Like, I think she does so well at getting into character, and it's evident by, like, you look at all the things that she's done from campaign to campaign and how drastically different those characters were. But you can connect with all of them. And I think this one, you're right, is probably one of my... This one and Bo are definitely my two favorites. Although, looking back, I really liked Keyleth too. I think, the internet is what the internet is, and she had a lot of issues with the fandom and Keyleth, but I think all of those were really unfounded for a lot of reasons. But I think just everybody at the table is so solid. But it is really interesting when she does the Laudna-esque stuff, and when she describes her transformations and stuff too. It's really great.
The snaps and the crackles and the pops, and then her the ichor. So, and talking to that, I think that she really does catch a lot of flack. And I think it might be because a lot of the other group, they have like tons of street cred in the industry. And Marisha has done a lot of things, and she's an extremely intelligent lady, and she knows exactly what she's doing, but I don't think people gave her credit ahead of time, and then all you can see is we're now in campaign 3, and every single one of her episodes, or every single one of her characters have been widely different, and she plays them to a T. She doesn't care if people like the character or not, which I like.
Yeah.
So,
and not to mention all the stuff that she does for them as a company and behind the scenes and all the things that she's involved in. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I will also say, well, now that we're talking about like favorite characters that people are playing, Fern probably is my favorite Ashley character now.
I agree.
And I think it was even started when they were doing the Exandria Unlimited stuff with Bria's campaign that she did, that short stint with when Robbie was playing everything else. Like, I there's something about her playing Fern that's like perfect. Like, it's a perfect match of like her personality and like the way she's.
I almost want to think that that's who Ashley is, maybe minus all the stealing. Like the little mischievous but fun, but kind of, it's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. And the voice that she does is perfect for it. Like that innocent sounding thing as she's stealing something from someone. It's really great. I mean, I obviously love all of the stuff that's going on. Well, those are good highlights. So I don't want to like go too deep because we'll probably in further episodes get into other ones. But pretty much, I don't have a character that I don't like. I think they're all really solid. Having said that, let's jump into the specifics of this episode so we can talk about what's going on.
I know.
All right. Let's talk about the first half. We'll start with the first half.
All right, so first half of this episode started out kind of as I expected it would, as the last episode ended, but since, I hadn't been paying attention to a lot of things, why don't you remind me about what's going on at the beginning of this episode, and we'll kind of dive into it.
Okay, so the group just got to the Paragon's Call.
Yep.
They're in the fortress, Seat of Disdain. They're going there to infiltrate and pretend like they want to actually join Paragon's Call. So prior to episode 33, they had already made their introductions, gathered their yellow cloaks that denoted that they were Paragon's Call, and had kind of gotten settled into their room. Some recon had been done overnight, or actually more right after they got there. Chetney ran out, turned invisible, went and found Treshy, and came back, said he was there. So really it kind of cuts off not long after Chetney comes back and says he found Treshy in the basement.
So, by the way, kind of side note, there are two things happening just from the DM side of me that, and the character level wise, they're kind of appropriate for what's going on, but two abilities that can really throw curveballs into plans as a DM. And it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just means like you gotta account for it if you know your players can do it. One is invisibility, right? Like that there's going to be someone that can get around without being seen for the most part. And then the other one, and I guess we'll dive into this when it gets appropriate, but this one's happened since the beginning of the campaign pretty much, and that is the detect thoughts ability. So whenever that comes in, that can be a real challenge for a DM. I think Matt is handling it really, really well. It's sort of at the core of a lot of things that have been happening too, right? Like there's a lot of the back and forth, but for me, even from a tactical perspective, the fact that you can do sending messages sort of telepathically at any level, there's a lot that you gain from that benefit of having somebody on the team. So when Chetney was moving around, were they in contact? Do you remember like if they were contacting each other or not at that level?
Not really.
Yeah. Okay.
I think at some point. No, I think he left, and then he came back. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your flow. So.
No, it's okay. It's just me trying to remember if he had or not. If he did, it was a very minor. Found him or something. It wasn't. Yeah. And he doesn't have the ability to do that on his own.
Right,
so
yeah.
Imogen would have had to have set that up ahead of time, and I just don't. I don't think that happened.
I don't think they did. I think you're right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yep.
That's okay.
So he's checking stuff out. What else we got going on?
So he's checking stuff out. Prior to him going and checking stuff out, the other members of the group had gone out and helped load the mammoth crawler out in the courtyard and had seen several crates that were listed or numbered and named as Treshy. So they had a lot of interest in those and tried to place them in ways that would not maybe be hard to access later.
And so, and remind, definitely not me, remind all the people that are watching, why are they there for Treshy? Like, I'm sure everyone wants to know that is not me, because I already have this knowledge.
Yeah, so Treshy seems to be at the center of a lot of what's going on right now in the campaign. He is the person who hired the assassin Artanavo to kidnap Gurge. And then you remember Gurge was being used to bite people and experiment with the werewolf infection or curse, however you see it, with the Nightmare King Ira Wendigoth. And so once all of that was happening and they figured out that Treshy, he's on the council. Oh, what's the name of the council? That are the secret members that, you don't really know who they are.
Yeah.
So he's on that, and he is I think he's kind of the middleman between who's really pulling the strings. He's hiring the people, and he's getting the experiments up to date. Trying to figure out stuff. So he is the person that they went to that ball and they danced with, and they took the ring off of his finger. They've been tracking him. Yeah, they've been tracking him, and that's how they figured out where he was actually at, was through that tracking ring.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure everybody knew that part too. I mean, now that you say that, of course, everything is just coming back to the viewers right now. So,
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, anyways, so he was kind of the person that was in contact with everyone. He was in contact with Ira Wendigoth. He was in contact with Artanavo. He's been in contact with Odahan Thule. So he really is kind of a key figure that has helped the Bell's Hells connect to everyone else.
Yep.
And they were sent to retrieve him.
Yep. And so things progress, right? things can get a little bit out of hand quickly. So what everybody that has watched this knows where things really started to turn. But for you, what's the point that you saw that things really started to change in this episode, this session that they had?
So the first half was, it literally started with bombs going off, the fortress is under attack, and right away, the group decides to split the party. I don't know about you, but that's never a good idea.
This is key. I think this also shows up later, but we'll get to that. I'm not completely against splitting the party, I have to say, but sometimes it makes sense to do it in certain circumstances. So, and they've been playing for a long time, so not unusual for this group to split the party.
Right.
To be fair, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and granted, they couldn't all go like running to the basement.
True. Yeah.
I mean, and I get it, but it always puts a unease in my gut.
Yep.
You're just like, oh no, what's about to happen?
Yeah.
So, it was Chetney, Orem, Imogen. They go to the basement, and then the other members go back out into the courtyard because they see it as an opportunity to retrieve the crates that they set out, kind of, strategically to be able to get off of the crawler. So. And then I really think that where things started getting a little crazy is once the trio got down into the basement and encountered Artanavo.
Yep.
Because Chetney had just been down there. I mean, he was not back hardly in any time before, the storm kicked in, it got dusty, and then the next thing you know, the dust storm is being used as a diversion to attack the fortress.
Yep. And again, who's, for all the people watching, who's attacking the fortress?
So what we know is that Artana Vo is in the basement, and she is a bounty hunter who has been previously hired by Treshy, who is down there in the basement I wouldn't say he's being held, because he's really got a cushy jail cell.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that they're keeping him down there as a person who they know is being pursued and out of the way. So he's not, publicly out there in the middle of everyone. And people would have to find him, and he's easy to protect down there. So we don't know if it's another group that's attacking, and Artana Vo figured out their plans and used it as a means to infiltrate to get Treshy. We don't know if she hired a group to come in and attack the call, to see if she could extract him. And I don't really know if she's extracting him because she wants to help him or if she wants to harm him, really. Because I feel like the Paragon's call is protecting him. So I'm kind of torn on whether, or what's the purpose behind her getting him.
What's really?
I mean, literally, FCG's doing donuts in a crawler outside. Like, I don't think he's ever tried to drive before. So,
I mean, he's got a wheel, so it seems like he should be good at it.
But technically, the crawlers are considered constructs, but are also considered creatures. So it's a little strange.
It is strange.
A mechanical creature driving a mechanical creature.
But, like humans ride horses, elves ride horses, so...
True.
Maybe not so bad. Yeah. But anyway, so like where are we at like now in the session? It's getting to the point where we're getting closer to the break.
I do think it's important to note that in the confusion and the chaos, the group that went outside, Fern, was able to get some items from a crate, and it ended up being 3 vials of this gray viscous liquid, which makes me automatically go to Dudamus.
Yeah, so it's the Dudamancy type stuff that we saw in Campaign 2. Those of us that watched that, that was being experimented with and things like that. So I think you're right. It seems like that to me too. She was able
to get 3, and she tucked them away. And really, that first half, that's pretty much what happened. They got Treshy in the hole. And they're wearing it kind of as a scarf. So they got him in the hole, collected him. They kind of made friends-ish with Artana, though, for the moment. And tried to just to go back upstairs to meet up with the other half of the group. Meanwhile, the other half of the group, half of them are running around like crazy people, and then a few of them are doing a couple of things. So one of the other things is that Laudina Spider climbed up the fortress and tried to place the locator ring, for want of a better word, on Odahan.
Yep.
She cast darkness, but I'm not quite sure if she... actually, Odahan saw her before she cast darkness, so she saw her, and then got the ring on her, and then she got attacked, but was able to avoid the attack. But then, she jumps off, and then she gets back with the group that's with the crawler. So
I think that started some of the issue, right? Like getting.
I think that's the biggest, one of the biggest things.
And, nothing that I wouldn't have done as a player. Nothing that, that's a call that you would make if you think it's important to track somebody. That's like all the things like that are happening. I don't think anybody's doing anything completely out of the norm. None of us should forget that although this is a story, it's also a game. And these are people playing a game. And they're thinking not only about the story progression and their character, but they're also thinking about game mechanics and how they can use the tools that they have and the abilities that they have to best pull off what they're trying to do.
Right.
And like the portable hole is a perfect example of that too, right? Like that's something that as soon as that magic item was let out to everyone in the early days of D&D, there have been unique uses of portable hole.
I mean, and
one
how
of them,
funny.
yeah.
It's like Looney Tunes all over again, you know?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
like you pop in and pop out.
It is totally Bugs Bunny moving the hole that he crawled into to go
It
somewhere
is.
else. And so like it's completely, which is totally ironic too, like when you've got voice actors that also voice cartoons.
And just to kind of, reference back to your last video, I do sincerely believe that if it was scripted, this was a move Laudna would not have made.
Totally. Yeah, this is, I'll reiterate for anybody that did not see the last video. You can see, it's sort of like when you can see the seams.
I got chill bumps saying that.
Yeah, like it's totally true, right? Like you can, like when you can, like, it's like when you look at a painting from a distance away and it looks so clear it's almost like a photograph. The closer you get, you start to see brush strokes. And you can tell someone painted it, right? And it's clearly a painting. Even though you take a far enough look back and it looks like a photographic depiction of something. And I think when you have people that are that good at role play, that good at improv, that good at voices, that good at storytelling, you've got a dungeon master that's just great at doing all of those things as well. It can sometimes seem as if it's got to be scripted. Or if you see somebody reading something, it's like, no, I read stuff in my games all the time. If anybody watched our campaign,
all the time.
You see me read stuff all the time because there are some things that you can prepare ahead. Yeah. Some things you prepare as a contingency. If this happens, I'll read this because I want to make sure I've got everything correct. But you're right. There are things that you see that are like nobody planned that. You see the scenes.
There is not a doubt in my mind that if what transpired at the end of the episode, if Laudna had known ahead, she would not have made this move. Well, in the moment, it was a cool clutch move. Okay, we're always going to know where Odahan is. Great.
Totally. Yeah. Well, speaking of that, let's move into the second half and see where this goes. All right, so we've gotten through the first half. We've gone through our intermission. We went through the break. Awesome art as usual. And now we're in the thick of things again. Give me your thoughts on this whole thing, because most of the second half is battle, right?
It's a fight,
It's just the fight.
It's kind of, is it a fight? Is it a fight? Oh, it's a fight.
It's a fight. It's on.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was something that you mentioned earlier that about splitting the party. This is the second time that this really happens. And I think from the beginning of when the battle was really started, right? And there was really this move, and they started realizing, oh man, this person just took down basically a mech by herself. And we've gotten ourselves into something. They spread out. They split up.
Yes.
So there's I want to say this, like from the start, before I mention anything, there's nothing wrong about that strategy. Mm-hmm. Like they could not have known that strategy was a bad move. Sometimes it is the right move.
Well,
to spread
they were
out.
Trying to run.
Yes. And so they were trying to flee in different directions, basically, to get out, right? That will come back as we talk about this. That decision right there is what I think. This is why I think I did see, I try not to read too much or watch too much about this, but I did see Matt was taking a little bit of flack about this being too hard of an encounter or an impossibly hard encounter. I don't think it was. I think it was a culmination of a lot of choices and bad rolls. They were rolling great on some things like leading up to this game, and then this game they had some pretty bad ones. Anyway,
this battle put Bell's Hells on the map for me.
Yes.
The whole episode was
Me too.
the edge of the seat going, oh my goodness, oh, what's about to happen? Oh, and you're over there going, yeah. You know?
I was, like, so there's two parts of me.
Do it, Matt, do it.
Yeah, part of me is like, keep going, Matt. Like,
yes.
And I didn't mean that in the kill them all, Matt, because like
Right.
he did. What I meant was strategically play your characters as NPC characters the way they should be played. If you hold back and you make choices that the NPC wouldn't make because you're trying to be easy on your players, you're breaking the immersion of the game.
Yes.
You're taking things away, and you're basically saying none of the choices that you make or none of the choices that these characters make matter. And that's not true. That's it. In the game should be played so that all the choices matter, and their choices that they made have had impacts. And the other people that live in that campaign.
Yeah, she is a war hero. She is the stuff that Ashton said nightmares have been made out of. Like, she's supposed to be a badass. Like, if she didn't come with her A game, there would be so many questions.
Well, but here's and this is what I was getting to with the spread out thing. There's no way for them to have known, because them being spread out, they did not know her full abilities yet, right? So they didn't know how mobile she was.
Right.
She was able to move. She could switch places with her.
Freaking amazing.
Yeah, right? So when you spread out and then you have someone that can do that, what you're doing is you're spreading out so that person can pick you off one at a time, concentrate on someone, and tactically weed you down person by person. And because you're spread out, your healers can't get to you.
Right.
So it's like the worst case scenario for fighting someone like that, because they do a lot of damage and they can move really far. And so the biggest damage dealers like Ashton didn't really even get a shot off. She
killed him in one encounter.
Yeah. So it's
and
like
the whole time, the whole time, Taliesin is sitting there like, what just happened? Yeah. Why? I didn't even... Guys, she killed me the first go. Like, I didn't even get a hit. It blew his mind. I had this instantly.
Planned. I was going to do this. I wish I could if I'd only do this, right? Yeah. Which, I'm telling you, your D&D is showing, right? Like, this is... Like, you pretty much know this is not a scripted show. Like, the way they are reacting, the way they're playing, as great of a role player as you are, it now becomes character survival. You're like, I want to survive, right?
Well,
and so it's it was just so he went down. He dealt a lot of damage. China usually deals a lot of damage. Couldn't really get too much in, a little bit, but not much. And even who am I thinking of? Not Laudna. I'm doing the same thing. No, not Laudna, but
Imogen.
Imogen, I did the same thing Matt does with messing up their names. So Imogen ended up disappearing for a bit, who was also a pretty reliable damage dealer from a sorcerer standpoint. Well, so from sheer game mechanic of it, like they weren't doing... She did more damage toward the end of that battle, like when she let loose a few times, than I think most of them did during the whole time. And it was just the nature of position on the battlefield and bad rolling. Like some things they couldn't handle.
Because I think when the encounter started, Imogen had not had a conversation with Odahan prior to. They had seen her, and Imogen tried to hide. So I don't know if Imogen even knew that Odahan knew who she was. I think that she thought that she didn't, or really hoped that she didn't. Yeah. And so I don't think that she thought at all when this encounter started that it would turn into being about her.
Yeah,
I think she thought it was because of the attack and the things that are happening with them invading the Paragon's Call. I definitely did not think, and that's when she did remove herself. She tried to go and hide so that the rest of her group was not trying to protect her. They were trying to get out.
Yeah. So, okay. So what's leading up to the dramatic end of this is the number of people going down, right? Like, so Who went down first? Do we remember? Like
Ashton.
it was
Ashton
went down
Yeah.
first. Then did
And
he come back
then
up?
He came back up.
Okay.
And then we had Orem went down, Fern went down.
And Fern went down. Laudna went down,
quick.
but rolled Laudna went down, but she also rolled a nat 20 to get back up to 1. Oh, another thing. Kudos to Matthew Mercer for how he played the moment where, and you'll probably even remember this better than me, but there's a moment when Imogen comes back and Odahan is speaking with her, and she's got Laudna sort of on the sword, impaled or like in the middle of it. And the way he mentions, like, it was something like, this one's important to you, or you care about this one. I mean, to the gut. It was a gut punch, but it was so well done.
Yeah. She said, "Oh, is she your favorite?"
Yes, is she?
And then had her like a skewer on a sword.
And to me, this is where, like, as a DM, I look at that and I'm like, all right, that's inspiring. It's inspiring for me because I go, you know, mechanically, there probably wasn't much else happening other than he'd already done the damage, he'd already done what he needed to do, and it was just role play the scenario. And people, you know, and I'm okay with it, but sometimes people just they call it flavor text in a description, right? It's the flavor of something. You can flavor things how you want, and I think they cast that off as a side note, and they think that the real crunch of it, the nuts and bolts of the mechanics, are what's important. The flavor doesn't matter as much. I am the opposite. I think the flavor is what matters. When I eat something, it could be good for me and nutritious, but if the flavor is really good and it tastes good, it is something that is going to stick with me. I'm going to remember that. Like, our taste is all about the flavor, right? Like, we want something. And so him being able to say what's going to have the biggest impact in this story, and would be something that this character would say to get in the head of this other character, this player character, I thought it was golden. It was such a good, whether it was planned ahead of time, like if he knew that this was a situation that was going to happen, or whether it was an improv moment, I think it's him being a really good improviser. That's me personally.
I agree.
So.
You know, so, you know, we're talking about some of the stuff that happened at the very end. So I wanted to kind of go back a little bit.
Yeah.
When it first started, when the encounter first started, she actually said, "Let's have a conversation."
Right.
Odahan did. And
that's right.
They were leery to converse with her, but the next thing she said was, "Who hired you? Who set this in motion?" And they didn't want to give, you know, Lord Esteros up as their person of, you know, their employer. And so she ended up, you know, tunneling into Orem's mind and taking the information from him. And I think that was tough because in that moment, they knew, like, okay, this lady's got the information. We can't hide from her. She's going to know what we're doing. She's going to go after him. And they still were going to try to run, I think, to cut it off at the pass, really. You know, let him know, let him get out. He's got a sky ship. Maybe he can get away. But she just was amazing. I mean, for a bad guy, she's great. And
also did the thing to them that they've been sort of getting away with a lot of the campaign. That whole memory probe thing has been a go-to for a lot of situations, even to dive into their own memories to try to understand and dig up more about what's going on. They did that with FCG. They did this with you know, anyway, you get what I'm saying. Like, I think to use that back against them was something that was really cool. So.
Well, and as they realize, or as she, I guess, gets serious because they're not wanting to play along, she starts unfurling her powers. And so, you know, out of her comes these other 3 gray shadows. And it's really important, a really important part of the story, because Orem recognizes them. And Matt makes a point of saying, kind of to the side, Orem, you recognize these 3 gray shadows.
Yeah, so masterfully done, like the way he's pulling that together. Yeah.
And
And
for those
it's
of
a
us that
payoff,
don't know,
right?
those of
Yeah.
us that don't know, what set Orem down the path of this whole, the last 2 campaigns that, and the reason why he's in the group is because the Ashari were attacked, Keyleth specifically, and in that attack, his husband, Will, got killed. And they were gray assassins, who is what he recognizes when Odahan bamps out her gray, like, doubles or triples, I guess. So,
and again, for those, I try to look at things as both just loving the story and the show, but also how can I be a better DM watching things, or at least pick up some ideas. And I think even from a player's perspective, when you work so hard on your backstory and you put in all this information, I'm sure Matt didn't start out going, okay, what am I going to put in campaign 3? And he went straight to that. He listened to what everybody wanted to do with their characters, and he pulled backstory information, and he said, okay, this is how I can thread some things and make some stories come together. I mean, even the fact that you've got this this moon theme that's been happening throughout with, all this stuff going on. Even if you think of, I remember Travis in the first campaign, or during that, or at least in discussions and sometimes panels and stuff, of him being so enamored with werewolves, and then eventually now being able to play one, right? And when do werewolves change? They change at the moon, right? Like everything has a, but it's also connected to what the players wanted for their characters. So it's not just like random stuff. It's all connected in such a way that makes sense for the story and for the characters, which is really inspiring. That anybody that puts their mind to this, and any group that comes together, can do a campaign like this. Maybe they don't have the production value of Critical Role, but you can still have a story at your table that brings in information from backstories and threads it together with mysterious things and makes a payoff without it being forced down everybody's throat.
Well, it does make me wonder, because we obviously know Imogen has a direct line, Ruidus. So does Fern. And then it becomes, okay, like specifically they both know that they were involved or parents were involved around Ruidus, them being born and whatnot. And but then now Orem's connection is that what we find is that Odahan is Ruidus born, and she is who killed his family. So his connection ties back to Ruidus. And I'm not sure with some of the other backstories, like with FCG, I'm not sure if, any of his changes and any things that happen with that really has anything to do with Ruidus as much as it has to do with maybe Aor and, some of the things in the past. But I think that's how I think that Ruidus was, came from some of that old stuff.
So now I just had something pop into my brain as you're talking about that. It's really interesting. I wonder if the way that Delilah Briarwood was able to become a patron like that was if there's a connection between the timing of the last Ruidus.
I think she might have harnessed Ruidus's power.
Yeah, I don't know. Wouldn't that be cool? Like if that was another time,
that would be
that's
crazy.
How she became like what she is. I don't know. Obviously, I don't even know. I can't even remember the timing, like when the timing of events happens when Ruidus comes versus when that would have happened for Laudna. But anyway, it's just great how they're pulling all this stuff together. That's awesome.
And so throughout the whole fight, Odahan is trying to goad Imogen. And she even says something to Fern as Fern is dying about her being a lesser seed of Ruidus.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That right there was very interesting to me. She called Fern a lesser seed and then said they only needed the strongest. And then the whole fight, she's relentlessly trying to get Imogen to surrender to this internal
And I
power.
think it was, I can't remember if it was Taliesin who made the comment, which I thought was really interesting. Like, is she a lesser seed because of her timing being born in the Fae rather than being in Prime Material Plane? Like, maybe that could have been the reason why. And that's an interesting thing, like, because of its where it shows up in the Fae realm versus, you know, and on the Prime Material world. So,
and I really need to go back and kind of do some research, I think, because part of me is not 100% sure. Was she conceived? Was Fern conceived during Ruidus and then was born in the Feywild? Or was she born in the regular realm and then they took her to the Feywild, which is then when Ruidus started like infiltrating the Feywild? I'm not 100% sure on whether she was Ruidus conceived or Ruidus born, you know?
Well, and also the timing of the Fae is a little bit weird too, like to know when Fern actually was where she was and all that stuff. I'm still confused. Or maybe they just are being ambiguous about that intentionally because they don't want to reveal that yet. But and they, I mean Matt and Ashley, like if they've come up with like how they're going to deal with that or not. So interesting. Yeah. So okay, so back to the ending of this thing. We've got how many people down, but at the end, like legit?
We have Orem. Orem is down.
Yep.
Fern is down, and Laudina is on her third death save on the end of Odahan's sword.
Okay, and mechanically, we know FCG is the only one with healing magic since Fern is down.
Yes. Yeah, I think so. Well, no.
One left, right?
Well, and that gets a little weird because Laudina has Wither and Bloom. And
true, but let's say it this way: only one that can bring some. Only with Revivify. Anyone that can bring some. Back.
No, I actually think Ashley can Revivify, but Ashley's dead at this point. So Ashley and Orem are dead. Laudina is almost dead. You know, so there is
dead meaning
that
3 strikes out dead.
Yeah, they've failed their death saves. In the middle of the fight, she goaded Imogen. You know, at first she was just knocking them out. And then Imogen would not conform or give in. And so she said, okay, well, I guess we'll take it a step further and I will start killing them. So she did. She was making sure after she knocked them out that she was going back and re-hitting them to automatically fail death saves.
That's the character would. Like, that's the thing, right? Like, it's not like... And, again, I have to say this. It's... Those situations happen because of a domino effect of things, right? Like it was, they split up for the battle to run away, but then one of them left, one of them came back after, right? So like they lost someone for some rounds, basically, to doing some, like there were a lot of things that happened. There were some bad dice rolls, and they had an unexpected opponent. They not unexpected in the sense that they didn't know who they were, but they just know all the capabilities, right? So
they had no
it makes
clue.
sense that
they had no idea who she was.
Nope. So it's to me, it makes sense. Like it's all part of how this game is played, and they all agreed to it. And I have to say this at the end, and I even put this little clip in my last video. They were all like, especially Liam, and then they all kind of chimed in, but they were like, "Great game, Matt."
Yeah,
like that, they got out of it what they thought they were going to get out of it. Even though I'm sure they're not happy about the fact that some of them are going to lose character, and probably at least one.
Yeah,
well, I mean, there's only one Revivify, if that, right?
I mean, I was screaming at the TV, as stuff was happening myself, but when it's all said and done, oh my goodness, like the emotions that were evoked and I think that that's what's important. Like that was a great game. That was an awesome game. I might not like the outcome, but the game itself had me on the edge of the couch, you know, and I'm just really anxious to kind of see what the next episode how it happens, because Imogen finally just lets go and the world explodes, you know?
Yeah. So
it'll be
interested
really
in what comes
interesting to
next.
see.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm going to say, like, the whole campaign, Imogen's been, you can tell she's got some psionic powers and she's got some things that she can do, but she hasn't really shown us a ton of crazy,
Tell you
out
who
of
she
this
reminds
world
me of.
stuff.
What she reminds me of, and maybe there's some inspiration there, and I don't want to be too on the nose with it because maybe it's just slight information based on they all are fans of all things geek, but she reminds me of Jean Grey, Phoenix, like Dark Phoenix possibilities popping in, like where, like maybe this whole Ruidus thing is almost like the Dark Phoenix. It's almost like it's something bubbling up inside of you, and the power is going to overtake you, and way more power than you can handle. I don't know, but I get little hints of that. But that again, that's just there's so many things in like this whole fantasy realm, sci-fi realm, and everything else that kind of like cross-pollinate a little bit. But man, I'm into campaign 3 now. Yeah, it's again, and you know what really hit me is when I saw the characters going down, I didn't want them to go. Like, and it let me know. It was like, oh, I really am into this campaign. I just need to be shocked into.
Maybe I thought I wasn't paying attention, but I was paying attention enough that I have care for the characters.
100%. That's what it. And I think maybe it was complacency for like when I missed campaigns, not being able to go back and watch, or not having the time to go back and watch them. I mean, for some people, the 4-hour commitment is easier than others. For us, it's hard to take the 4 hours to get it done, but it's something that we really love and we want to keep doing it. So we have to break it up and things like that. So, looking forward to getting into the next episode tonight, actually, because we put this off enough time to be able to watch.
Well,
when we're ready, we didn't watch any of the next episode. We're just ready to go. And
I snoozed my groups, so I wasn't spoiled. Yeah. And honestly, I'm like, okay, when it's all said and done, we've got 3 potential dead characters. Yeah. Because Laudna only has 1 death save, and she's on the end of a sword. So I don't really feel like that's very. It's not really in a good spot to like be able to get away. So I'm
a 50-50 chance of holding of this death save.
I'm struggling because I'm like, if we had to choose Aurum, Fern,
not only that. But guess who's going to have to choose though? If it is a choice,
FCG.
I hate to say this. Yeah, for those, there's a little spoiler for campaign 1 if you don't know campaign 1, but like, Sam is on the hook for the choice again. He had to choose with Liam in the first campaign. Now he's on the hook for being able to choose between one of 3. Yeah. It's pretty crazy, and it's a hard spot to be in.
And we have to also mention that every time FCG does something, there's the potential that he fritzes out and turns into red-eyed FCG. So what
we could have a total party kill except for FCG.
And then he goes, like there's the whole the whole level of events that could spawn from this is crazy. Like I don't know. I'm really torn because Laudna is one of probably my favorite in the whole campaign, just her character. And Fern is my favorite of Ashley's characters, but I don't know.
I don't know. It's hard.
I love Liam and I love Aurum. And Aurum, I feel like Aurum has a lot left to do.
Yeah,
I really feel like. And then my thing is Delilah gonna let Imogen? I'm not Imogen. Is Delilah gonna let Laudna die? There's so many. There's so many variables that can affect the next campaign and who we see and who we don't see. Do you think that there will be? Yeah. Do you think? Or did I say season? Sorry. Yeah, the next.
That's
episode.
okay. That's good.
Do you think that there will definitely be like permanently dead characters?
Yes. I think at least 1. Maybe 2.
No.
I think there's just me. Like I haven't read anything or seen anything, I think just from a game perspective, there's one potential revivify spell. Now, here's the other thing. I'm going to throw this out there as an idea. Okay, so let's say 2 go down permanently. 2 die. 1 stays up. If they still have their portable hole, they could put them in the hole, take them with them, and find someone that has the ability to bring them back that is a higher level spellcaster.
What
That is a
is there a
possibility.
spell? Is there a spell that you can cast that will maintain somebody's body? Is that Gentle Repose?
Yeah, so but also I don't know if being in the portable hole puts it in a sense of suspended animation. I don't remember that. Someone else can enter in the comments below to let me know if that's the case or not. I don't remember. I'll look it up after this video, but that could be something they could try to argue and say, well, it's not in reality. It's in a pocket dimension.
Right.
Maybe it doesn't have anything happen. But even still, I would argue that they would still need to have a higher level spellcaster to do something other than revivify to bring them back.
Right.
And
Right.
Matt has some homebrew raising the dead rules that he had in other campaigns too. So there are some things that could be done, but I do think if they don't completely go, but I think that there's at least 1, if not 2, that are going to be gone. And maybe we'll see new characters. We'll see.
That's so hard. I feel like there's still stuff that Fern has to do. I feel like there's still stuff that Orem has to do. I feel like there's still a ton of stuff Delilah at least wants to do. If Laudna doesn't have her own idea on things, I mean.
I agree. Spoiler for Campaign 2, anybody that has not watched
hard.
Campaign 2. But spoiler for Campaign 2, if you haven't watched that, just letting you know. I think everybody was really upset when Campaign 2 lost Molly. But if you hadn't lost Molly, you had no chance of seeing Caduceus.
Right.
And Caduceus
Or
was
Lucian.
such a good...
Or
It's
Lucian.
Yeah, Lucian too, but Caduceus as a character, the second character that Taliesin brought in, was also amazing.
Yeah.
Arguably, I think a fan favorite compared to even Molly, even though Molly was great and everybody loved Molly.
Right.
So it's hard, but then you get a chance to see what these amazing,
I would
voice
say,
actors can do. So.
I would say that was his best character, except for the fact that, I didn't watch season 1 fully.
Percy's great.
I came in at the tail end of season 1 and the start of season 2, and I've gone back and I've tried to watch some of it, but where it really kind of hits home is watching the animated series on Amazon. I was like, oh man, such a cool character.
Yeah.
And it made me so much more interested in learning about Percy, whereas before I was like, oh yeah,
no Percy, no
he's got a long
Laudna.
name.
No Percy, no Laudna. If there was no Briarwood storyline, there was none of
Correct.
that. There wouldn't be Laudna. It's just really well done how they're pulling things together to make it a real shared universe, so to speak, of campaign stories and just what they're doing is amazing. So, I'm forever a fan. It just took me a while to get my head back in the game for this season, but this episode really did it. I'm really looking forward to the one we're about to watch. So
I am too. I'm scared.
All right. Well, thanks for hanging out with us, and cheers, everybody. So we will see you next time. All right.
See you next time.